The phone call came on a rain-soaked Tuesday morning in March 2023. A state attorney, Margaret Whitfield's voice trembled as she spoke to Grant's biographer. "You need to see this immediately." In the sprawling Connecticut mansion that had belonged to Grant's longtime friend and confidant, renovation workers had made an extraordinary discovery. Behind a false wall in the library, they found a leather trunk that hadn't seen daylight since 1952. Inside, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper and tied with faded ribbon, were 47 handwritten letters. Each one bore the unmistakable signature of Cary Grant, but the man revealed in these pages was nothing like the polished performer the world adored. These weren't fan letters or business correspondence. They were deeply personal confessions, written to someone whose identity would send shockwaves through Hollywood history. The letters spanned nearly 2 decades. From 1935 to 1954, documenting Grant's most vulnerable moments. Written in his characteristic, blue ink on expensive stationery, they revealed a tormented soul wrestling with secrets that could have destroyed his career. The first letter, dated September 15, 1935, began with words that would haunt readers. "My dearest friend, I can no longer pretend to be the man everyone expects me to be. The weight of this facade is crushing my very soul." Little did the world know that behind the twinkling eyes and debonair smile lived a man consumed by fear, struggling with his identity in an industry that demanded absolute conformity. These letters weren't just personal correspondence. They were the desperate cries of a man trapped between his authentic self and the golden cage of stardom. The discovery would force Hollywood historians to completely rewrite the story of one of cinema's greatest legends. As news of the find spread through exclusive circles, one question haunted everyone who heard the story. Why had these letters been hidden for so long? And what truth was so dangerous that it had to be buried for 7 decades? Born Archibald Alexander Leach in the grimy industrial city of Bristol, England, the man who would become Cary Grant was forged in tragedy and abandonment. His mother, Elsie, vanished from his life when he was just 9 years old, or so he was told. The truth, which wouldn't surface until decades later, was far more sinister. She had been committed to a mental institution by his father, who told young Archie she was dead. This fundamental betrayal by the man he trusted most would shape every relationship Grant ever had. In a letter dated March 1936, he wrote, "I learned at 9 years old that love is conditional, that truth is optional, and that the people closest to you are capable of the most devastating deceptions. Is it any wonder I became so skilled at wearing masks?" His escape from poverty came through acrobatics and vaudeville, performing with a troupe of entertainers who would become his surrogate family. But even then, the letters reveal, young Archie was learning to hide his true nature. A particularly poignant passage from 1937 describes his terror when Hollywood executives began grooming him for stardom. "They are creating a character called Cary Grant, and I must kill Archie Leach completely to become him. Some days I look in the mirror and don't recognize the man staring back." The transformation was methodical and merciless. His accent was refined, his mannerisms studied and perfected, his past rewritten to fit Hollywood's golden boy narrative. Grant mastered the art of being everything to everyone, the sophisticated gentleman, the charming rogue, the romantic ideal. But the letters revealed the psychological toll this performance extracted. "I have become so skilled at pretending that I sometimes forget which emotions are real and which are merely good acting," he confessed in a 1938 letter. The world sees Cary Grant as the epitome of masculine confidence. But inside, Archie Leach is still that frightened boy whose mother disappeared without explanation, whose father chose lies over love. The man the world would worship as the ultimate leading man was, in reality, a master illusionist whose greatest trick was making himself disappear. The most explosive revelations in Grant's secret correspondence centered around a love affair that Hollywood's power brokers went to extraordinary lengths to conceal. The letters speak of someone identified only as R, a relationship so dangerous to Grant's career that every reference was carefully coded, every meeting orchestrated in shadows. From fragments pieced together across multiple letters, a shocking picture emerges. R was not the starlet or socialite the public might expect, but someone whose very existence threatened the carefully constructed image that had made Grant millions. In a letter from August 1939, Grant's anguish is palpable. "Last night I held R in my arms and felt more myself than I have in years. Yet I know that if the world knew, everything I've built would crumble like sand." The relationship was conducted in a netherworld of secret codes and clandestine meetings. Grant wrote of driving for hours in the dead of night to lonely beaches, where they could walk together without fear of recognition. He described the agony of attending premieres with carefully selected female companions, while the person he truly loved watched from the shadows. The studio arranged another romantic dinner, with a starlet for the cameras tonight. He wrote in October 1941, "I smiled and played the part of the charming bachelor. But all I could think about was R's eyes watching the newsreels, seeing me with another. knowing it's all a lie but powerless to change it. The letters reveal that this relationship lasted nearly 15 years, surviving Grant's 3 marriages and countless affairs manufactured by publicity departments. More heartbreaking still, they suggest that are understood the impossible position Grant was in, accepting a love that could never be acknowledged publicly. The final letter to Ark, dated December 1954, is perhaps the most devastating. I must let you go. Not because I love you less, but because I love you too much to continue, destroying both our lives with this impossible dream. Who was this mysterious figure who captured the heart of Hollywood's most eligible bachelor? The answer would remain hidden for decades, but the emotional toll is evident in every carefully crafted sentence. Among the most startling discoveries in Grant's secret letters were detailed accounts of his experiences with LSD therapy, a closely guarded secret that would have scandalized 1950s America. Years before the counterculture movement made psychedelics infamous, Grant was quietly undergoing radical psychiatric treatment under the guidance of Dr. Mortimer Hartman in Beverly Hills. The letters reveal that Grant began these sessions in 1958, desperate to understand himself after decades of living behind masks. Today, I ingested a substance that promised to show me who I really am beneath the Cary Grant performance, he wrote to his confidant. What I discovered was both terrifying and liberating. I am not the monster I believed myself to be, nor am I the saint the public adores. I am simply a broken man, trying to piece together a coherent identity from the fragments of a shattered childhood. Grant underwent over 100 LSD sessions, each one documented in meticulous detail in his private correspondence. The letters describe visions of his mother, conversations with his younger self, and profound realizations about his sexuality and relationships. Most remarkably, they reveal how these experiences began to heal the psychological wounds that had driven him to create such elaborate emotional armor. Under the influence of this remarkable compound, I finally understood that my fear of abandonment drove me to abandon others first, he wrote in 1959. I saw how I had used my charm as a weapon, how I had confused love with control, how I had been so afraid of being truly known that I had never allowed anyone to actually see me. The therapy sessions were conducted in utmost secrecy, with Grant arriving at Dr. Hartman's office through private entrances and scheduling treatments between film projects. The letters reveal that several other major Hollywood figures were also undergoing similar treatments, though Grant was careful never to name them directly. Perhaps most shocking was Grant's growing awareness of how his carefully constructed public persona was slowly killing his authentic self. Cary Grant is becoming a prison, he wrote, and I am both the prisoner and the guard. The secret letters cast Grant's 5 marriages in a dramatically different light, revealing them as elaborate performances designed to maintain his public image while protecting devastating personal truths. Each marriage, the correspondence suggests, was carefully orchestrated by studio executives and publicity departments who understood exactly what secrets needed to be concealed. His first marriage to actress Virginia Cherrill in 1934 was, according to the letters, arranged primarily to counter persistent rumors about his sexuality. Virginia is a lovely girl and deserves better than this charade, he wrote, but she understands the game we must play. We are both prisoners of this system that demands we perform happiness for the cameras while our real lives wither in darkness. But the letters reveal that Grant maintained genuine affection for most of his wives, but never the passionate love the public imagined. His marriage to heiress Barbara Hutton was particularly tragic. She was one of the few people who knew his deepest secrets, and their union was as much about mutual protection as any romantic feeling. Barbara and I understand each other perfectly, he confided in 1942. We are both refugees from our authentic selves, both playing roles that the world expects. In her, I found someone who could love Cary Grant, the character, while also grieving. For Archie Leach, the Lost Boy, it is the closest thing to real intimacy I have ever known. The most heartbreaking revelations concerned his relationship with his daughter Jennifer. The letters show a man desperate to be a good father while terrified that his secrets might somehow taint her life. I watched Jennifer playing in the garden and wonder what kind of man I might have been if I had not been forced to hide so much of myself, he wrote. Will she grow up proud of her father, or will she one day discover that everything she believed about me was a carefully constructed lie? His final marriage to Barbara Harris, more than 40 years his junior, was perhaps the most genuine. The letters suggest, by then, Grant had achieved some measure of peace with his contradictions, though the performance never entirely stopped. The letters expose a shadowy network within Hollywood's studio system, a kind of secret police force dedicated to protecting the carefully crafted images of major stars. Grant's correspondence reveals how fixers, private investigators, and publicity experts worked tirelessly to suppress any information that might damage their most valuable properties. They watch everything, Grant wrote in a 1946 letter. Every restaurant I enter, every person I speak to, every moment I'm not on a soundstage is carefully monitored. They call it protection, but it feels like imprisonment. I am valuable to them not as a human being, but as a brand to be preserved at all costs. The letters detail specific instances where potentially damaging stories were buried through bribery, intimidation, or worse. Grant describes photographers whose cameras were mysteriously destroyed, journalists who suddenly found themselves reassigned to distant bureaus, and witnesses who were paid substantial sums to develop amnesia about what they had seen. One particularly chilling passage from 1948 describes an incident where Grant feared his secret relationship might be exposed. Within hours, the problem was solved with an efficiency that terrified me. The photographer's negatives disappeared. The witnesses were relocated to different cities, and the story died as if it had never existed. I should have been grateful, but instead I felt like I was watching my own soul being murdered to preserve a fictional character. The studio system's control extended beyond Grant's professional life into every aspect of his personal existence. His homes were bugged, his telephone calls monitored, his mail read before he received it. "I am the most famous prisoner in America," he wrote, "living in a golden cage that everyone envies, but no one truly understands." Most disturbing was Grant's growing realization that he had become complicit in his own imprisonment. "I have been so well trained to protect the secret that I no longer remember which parts of my life are real and which are performance," he confessed in 1951. Perhaps that was always their greatest victory, making me believe that Cary Grant was worth more than Archie Leach ever could be. Among the most dramatic revelations in Grant's letters is his account of a single evening in 1952 that nearly destroyed everything he had built. The incident, which he referred to only as the night the mask slipped, involved a chance encounter that threatened to expose his most carefully guarded secrets to the world. Grant was attending a private party at the Beverly Hills mansion of a prominent producer when he encountered someone from his distant past, a person who knew him as Archie Leach. Before the transformation into Cary Grant, the letters reveal his terror as old truths collided with new lies in front of Hollywood's most powerful figures. "I felt the blood drain from my face as I saw a ghost from my former life standing across the room," he wrote. "In that moment, I realized how completely I had tried to erase my past, and how impossible it is to truly kill the person you once were." The weight of maintaining this deception suddenly felt unbearable. The encounter led to a confrontation that Grant described as the most terrifying performance of my life. For hours, he danced around dangerous truths, deflecting questions that could have unraveled decades of careful construction. Meanwhile, the letters reveal studio executives were already mobilizing their network of fixers to contain any potential damage. "By dawn, it was handled," Grant wrote, "but the cost was enormous. I watched them destroy another human being to protect my secret, and I realized I had become a monster in the service of maintaining an illusion. The price of being Cary Grant was paid in other people's blood, and I was finally old enough to understand the true cost of my cowardice." The incident marked a turning point in Grant's psychology. His letters from this period show a man increasingly desperate to find some way to live authentically while trapped within a public persona that had become his prison. "I am suffocating inside this character I created," he confessed, "but I no longer know how to exist without him." The aftermath of that night would haunt Grant for years. The letters reveal contributing to his decision to begin LSD therapy as a desperate attempt to reclaim some portion of his authentic self. Perhaps the most shocking revelation in Grant's correspondence was the existence of an informal network of Hollywood stars who shared similar secrets, a kind of underground railroad for celebrities, living double lives. The letters hint at clandestine gatherings where some of Hollywood's biggest names could temporarily drop their carefully maintained facades. "We are all prisoners of our own success," Grant wrote in 1953, describing what he called the circle of shadows. "Last night, I sat with three of the most famous faces in America, and we spoke honestly for the first time in years about the prices we have paid for our fame. There is comfort in knowing I am not alone in this particular kind of suffering." The letters suggest that these gatherings occurred monthly at various private estates around Los Angeles. The attendees, identified only by initials, included some of the most celebrated figures of Hollywood's golden age. They would meet under the cover of legitimate business dinners or charity events. But the real purpose was mutual support and the rare opportunity to speak honestly about their hidden lives. Grant described these meetings as both therapeutic and heartbreaking. "We are like veterans of a war that never ended, comparing wounds that no one else can see. The very fame that elevated us has also isolated us from genuine human connection. We understand each other's pain in ways that our families, our lovers, our closest friends never could." The letters reveal that this secret society had its own code of conduct, its own methods of protection, and its own tragic casualties. Grant wrote movingly about stars who couldn't maintain the performance any longer, whose careers were quietly destroyed to protect the larger system that kept the others in line. "We tell ourselves we are survivors," he wrote in 1954. "But sometimes I wonder if we are simply the walking dead. animated by the expectations of millions of strangers who love characters we created and despise the truth of who we really are. The existence of this network helps explain how so many of Hollywood's biggest secrets remained buried for decades. It wasn't just studio protection, but mutual protection among the stars themselves who understood that everyone's survival depended on maintaining everyone else's illusions. Buried within Grant's secret correspondence was a collection of letters that would rewrite Hollywood romance history, passionate love letters, exchanged with an unnamed recipient whose identity remained one of Grant's most closely guarded secrets. These weren't the coded references to or from his earlier letters, but a completely separate relationship that occurred much later in his career. The letters, dating from 1955 to 1962, reveal a love affair of extraordinary intensity and tragic impossibility. My darling, one letter begins, if I could give you my name, my fortune, my very life to make our love possible, I would do so without hesitation. But we both know that some dreams are too dangerous for this world. The correspondence suggests a relationship conducted entirely in secret, with meetings arranged through elaborate codes and conducted in rented houses far from the prying eyes of Hollywood. Grant wrote of driving hundreds of miles just to spend a few hours with this mysterious lover, of living 4 letters that had to be immediately destroyed after reading. Tonight, I held you while you slept, and I understood for the first time what poets mean when they write about souls recognizing each other across lifetimes. He wrote, but when morning comes, I must return to being Cary Grant, and you must return to your own impossible life. And we must pretend that this perfect love doesn't exist. The letters reveal that both Grant and his secret love were trapped by circumstances that made their relationship not just scandalous, but potentially destructive to multiple lives. References to your situation and the children who must never know suggest his lover was married, possibly to someone prominent enough that exposure would have created a scandal extending far beyond Hollywood. Most heartbreaking are Grant's descriptions of seeing his secret love at public events, having to maintain polite distance while yearning to hold them openly. Last night at the premiere, I watched you across the theater and felt my heart breaking with each forced smile you gave the cameras. We are condemned to love each other from opposite sides of an impossible divide. The final letter in this collection, dated August 1962, suggests the relationship ended when the risk of discovery became too great, but Grant's grief is palpable in every line. The letters reveal the devastating psychological toll that maintaining his perfect public image extracted from Grant throughout his career. Behind the effortless charm and seemingly unshakable confidence was a man tormented by the constant pressure to never let the mask slip, not even for a moment. I have not had a genuine conversation with another human being in over 10 years. He wrote in 1956, every word I speak in public is calculated, every gesture practiced, every emotion performed. I am the most successful actor in Hollywood because I never stop acting. I have forgotten how to simply be human. Grant's letters document his growing paranoia about being discovered, his inability to trust anyone completely, and his increasing reliance on alcohol and prescription medications to manage the anxiety of constant performance. Some nights, I drink myself unconscious not to forget my troubles, but to forget who I am supposed to be, he confessed. In those brief moments of oblivion, perhaps Archie Leach can finally rest. The letters also reveal Grant's growing awareness of how his deception was affecting everyone around him. His wives, his friends, his colleagues, everyone was forced to participate in maintaining an illusion that was slowly consuming its creator. I have turned everyone who loves me into accomplices in my own destruction. He wrote, they protect my secrets because they love me, but in doing so, they help imprison me in this character I created. Perhaps most tragic were Grant's descriptions of his relationship with his own reflection. I avoid mirrors now, he wrote in 1958. When I see Cary Grant looking back at me, I feel like I'm staring at my murderer, the man who killed Archie Leach so successfully that even I have forgotten what he looked like. The letters reveal that Grant's decision to retire from acting in 1966 was not just a career choice, but a desperate attempt to escape the prison of perfection he had built around himself. I must stop being Cary Grant before Cary Grant completely destroys whatever is left of the man I once was, he wrote in what appears to be one of his final confessional letters. Among the most poignant revelations in Grant's secret letters are his yearnings for authentic family connections and his tragic recognition that his deceptions had made such relationships impossible. The letters reveal a man desperately lonely despite being surrounded by admirers, longing for the simple human connections that his fame had made unattainable. I watch ordinary families in restaurants and envy their ability to simply be together without performance, he wrote in 1959. A father can be grumpy with his children. A husband can disagree with his wife. They can be imperfect and human and real. I have not had that luxury in 25 years. Grant's letters reveal his deep regret about his relationship with his daughter, Jennifer, whom he loved desperately but felt he could never truly know. She looks at me with such admiration, and it breaks my heart because I know she loves Cary Grant, not the complicated, flawed man who is actually her father. How can I tell her that her hero is an illusion without destroying her faith in everything? The correspondence shows Grant's desperate attempts to create authentic moments with Jennifer, despite the constraints of his public persona. He wrote about taking her on secret adventures where they could pretend to be ordinary people, about teaching her to recognize the difference between performance and authenticity, about his terror that she would grow up believing love always requires pretense. Last night, Jennifer asked me why I never seem sad, why I always smile, even when things go wrong. He wrote, how do I explain to a 10-year-old that daddy isn't allowed to have genuine emotions in public, that he's forgotten how to have them? In private, Grant's letters also reveal his longing for siblings, for parents who truly knew him, for extended family connections that had been severed by his reinvention. I created Cary Grant by murdering Archie Leach's entire world. He wrote, I told everyone from my past that they were dead to me, but in truth, I was the one who died. They continued living authentic lives while I became a ghost, haunting my own existence. The tragedy of Grant's family relationships was that even his genuine love for Jennifer was filtered through the prism of his public persona, making him feel like he was performing fatherhood rather than living it. Grant's letters expose the Hollywood studio system not just as a dream factory, but as a sophisticated machine for manufacturing and maintaining illusions at any human cost. His correspondence reveals how the industry's most powerful figures collaborated to create and sustain false narratives about their biggest stars, regardless of the psychological damage inflicted. They don't see us as human beings, Grant wrote. In a particularly bitter letter from 1960, we are products to be packaged, brands to be protected, investments to be maintained. The fact that we are people with souls and hearts and authentic feelings is merely an inconvenience to be managed. The letters detail specific instances of how studio executives would orchestrate elaborate deceptions to maintain their stars. Marketable images. Grant described being forced to attend events with carefully selected female companions, having his private life monitored and managed, and being required to maintain friendships and feuds that were pure theater for public consumption. Last week they arranged a spontaneous romance for the cameras. He wrote, the poor girl thinks it might be real, but I know it's just another performance designed to sell movie tickets. I watched her fall for Cary Grant while I died a little inside, knowing I was participating in breaking her heart for profit. Perhaps most disturbing were Grant's revelations about what happened to stars who threatened to rebel against the system. He wrote about careers destroyed overnight, about stars who were essentially blacklisted for refusing to maintain their assigned personas, about the sophisticated network of private investigators and enforcers who maintained order through fear. They call it the golden age, he wrote, but for those of us living inside it, it's more like beautiful slavery. We are given everything money can buy and denied the one thing that makes life worth living, the freedom to be authentically ourselves. Grant's letters suggest that many of Hollywood's biggest stars were living similar double lives, trapped by the same system that had made them famous. We are all prisoners here, he wrote, and the guards are the very people who claim to love us most, our agents, our studios, our fans who would destroy us if they knew who we really were. The letters reveal that Grant experienced what he called his great unraveling in 1963, a psychological crisis that nearly destroyed him but ultimately led to his most authentic years. The breakdown was triggered by a combination of exhaustion from decades of performance, the end of another secret relationship, and his growing awareness of how completely he had lost himself in the character of Cary Grant. I woke up this morning and couldn't remember my real birthday, he wrote in a shaking hand. Is it January 18th, Cary Grant's birthday? Or is it some other date that belonged to Archie Leach, a man I murdered so long ago I've forgotten his face? I am having what the doctors politely call a nervous breakdown. But I know the truth. I am finally mourning the death of my authentic self. The letters document weeks of what Grant described as living hell, panic attacks, insomnia, and a terrifying inability to maintain the performance that had sustained him for 3 decades. For the first time since becoming famous, Grant was unable to be Cary Grant, and the experience was both devastating and liberating. I cannot smile on command anymore, he wrote. I cannot charm my way out of situations or pretend to be unflappable when I am falling apart. The mask has finally cracked, and I am terrified and relieved in equal measure. The breakdown forced Grant to seek help beyond the LSD therapy he had been using. The letters reveal sessions with psychiatrists who helped him begin to understand the difference between his authentic self and his performed self. Dr. Williams asked me yesterday who I was before I became Cary Grant. He wrote, I sat in silence for the entire session because I literally could not remember. The recovery process was gradual and painful. Grant wrote about learning to experience genuine emotions for the first time in decades, about the strange sensation of having unscripted conversations, about slowly rediscovering preferences and opinions that weren't calculated for public consumption. Yesterday, I laughed spontaneously for the first time in 20 years. He wrote in 1964. It was such an unusual sound that I frightened myself. But it felt like Archie Leach was still alive somewhere inside this elaborate costume I've been wearing. The last collection of letters, written between 1980 and 1986, reveal an older Grant who had achieved some measure of peace with his contradictions, but remained haunted by the choices he had made. These final letters, addressed to an unnamed confidant, read like a man's attempt to confess his life before facing eternity. I am nearly 80 years old, and I still don't know who I really am, he wrote in 1982. I have been Cary Grant for so long that Archie Leach has become more of a memory than a person. Perhaps that was inevitable. Perhaps we all become the stories we tell about ourselves often enough. The letters reveal Grant's growing awareness of his legacy and his fear that history would remember only the performance, never the man. When I die, they will write about Cary Grant as if he were real, he wrote. They will catalog his films, his marriages, his charm, his sophistication. But no one will mourn Archie Leach, the frightened boy who just wanted to be loved for who he really was. Most poignantly, the final letters show Grant's attempts to make peace with the people he had hurt through his deceptions. He wrote about reaching out to former lovers who had been casualties of his need to maintain his image, about trying to explain to Jennifer the complex truth about her father, about attempting to honor the memory of those who had kept his secrets at great personal cost. I cannot undo the damage I have done by living this lie for so long, he wrote in 1985. But perhaps I can finally speak some truth, even if it comes too late to matter to anyone but myself. The final letter, dated just months before his death, contains what may be Grant's most honest words. I created Cary Grant to protect Archie Leach, but in the end, I protected him so well that he suffocated in his hiding place. If there is an afterlife, perhaps I will finally meet the man I was meant to be, the one who never got the chance to fully live because I was too afraid to let him be seen. The letter ends with a single, devastating line. I pray that someday, someone will love Archie Leach enough to tell his story, not just the legend of Cary Grant. The discovery of Grant's secret letters has forced a complete re-evaluation of not just one man's life, but the entire mythology of Hollywood's golden age. These intimate confessions reveal the human cost of the entertainment industry's relentless pursuit of perfection, the price paid by those who became prisoners of their own carefully crafted images. The letters demonstrate that Grant's story was not unique. He was part of a generation of performers who were required to sacrifice their authentic selves on the altar of public adoration. His correspondence with other stars, his descriptions of the secret network of hidden lives, his detailed accounts of the studio systems control mechanisms all point to a systematic suppression of human truth in service of commercial fantasy. We were all complicit, Grant wrote in one of his final letters. The studios, the agents, the press, the fans, and most tragically, ourselves. We participated in our own dehumanization because the rewards seemed so magnificent and the alternative, authenticity, seemed so dangerous. The revelation of these letters has sparked intense debate about privacy, legacy, and the public's right to know the truth about their idols. Grant's family has expressed mixed feelings about the discovery, grateful for insights into their patriarch's inner life, but protective of his privacy. Even decades after his death, perhaps most significantly, the letters have inspired a new generation of performers to question the price of fame and the necessity of hiding their authentic selves. Cary Grant's secret letters are not just historical documents, noted one contemporary actor. They are a warning about what happens when the performance becomes more important than the person. The man who epitomized sophistication, charm, and effortless masculinity has been revealed as someone far more complex and human than his public image ever suggested. In losing the myth of Cary Grant's perfection, we have gained something far more valuable, the story of Archie Leach's struggle to exist within an impossible system. His letters stand as a testament to the courage required to live authentically, in a world that often demands performance over truth, appearance over reality, illusion over the messy, complicated, beautiful truth of human existence. For decades, the world loved Cary Grant, the debonair gentleman, the perfect leading man, the epitome of sophisticated charm. But hidden in those secret letters, we finally meet Archie Leach, a frightened boy from Bristol who became one of cinema's greatest actors, not just on screen, but in the elaborate performance of his daily life. These revelations don't diminish Grant's legacy, they humanize it. They remind us that behind every perfect image lies a complex human being struggling with the same fears, desires, and contradictions that define us all. Perhaps the most tragic irony is that Grant's greatest performance, the one that lasted his entire adult life, was the very thing that prevented the world from loving the man he truly was. The letters reveal a profound truth about fame, authenticity, and the price of perfection. They challenge us to consider what we demand of our heroes and what we're willing to sacrifice to maintain our illusions. In the end, Cary Grant's secret letters are not just the confessions of one troubled star. They are a mirror reflecting our own relationship with truth, performance, and the masks we all wear. What secrets do you think we'll never know about Hollywood's golden age? What other hidden truths might be waiting to be discovered in dusty attics and forgotten trunks? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more shocking revelations about the stars who captured our hearts while hiding their souls. The truth about Cary Grant is finally out, but perhaps the most important question isn't about his secrets, but about our own. In a world that increasingly demands perfection from public figures, are we creating more Archie Leach's talented, sensitive souls forced to disappear behind carefully crafted personas? The letters suggest that the price of our adoration may be higher than we ever imagined.